Welcome to the Dan Norton Show. It is Saturday, September 6th, 2025, and it's earlier than usual for my show. It's 11 a.m. Pacific time, and I think we've set a record number of likes before the show starts. We've already got 6 likes, so thank you very much for that. That'll help promote the show. I guess my comment in the chat might have helped with that. Because I said thanks for the early likes. Maybe that encouraged people to do some more. All right, so we are back after, I think, 4 days since our last live stream. Last time we had a discussion of transgender issues. We had a call from Holden Mitrione about the fountainhead. We had some discussion in chat about self-interest versus self-sacrifice and some other things too. So that's a little summary of the last live stream. Uh, see, today we got Greg Lewis here. He's our first chatter of the day. He asks what time zone I'm in. I'm in Pacific time. Yeah, 11 a.m. Pacific time is when I started. So I'm more likely to get Europeans the earlier I start because they're so far ahead, like 8 or 9 hours. I think the furthest east I've had a person listening from, at least that I know of, is Israel. Someone called in from Israel once. Okay, so I invite you all to participate in the chats. This is a show on which you can help guide the content. So if there's something in particular you'd like to discuss or ask a question about, then feel free to just jump in the chat there. And I've also got a Zoom link if you want to call the show, which is pinned in the chat, along with a phone number if you prefer to use that instead of the Zoom link. Greg says it's 2 here in Michigan. Okay. I didn't know you were in Michigan. I know there's a Michigan crew that listens to your Ron Brooks. Sometimes he mentions them, like Jennifer Lionberger, I think, Robert and Amy Nacier. By the way, thanks to Robert and Amy for mentioning me on their show a few times. I just heard about that. I think it might have been you, Greg, actually, who told me, was it? Oh, no, actually, I think it might have been Tom Harrison. Yeah, I think it was Tom Harrison who showed up for the first time on my chat, in the last live stream. And he said he heard about me through Robert and Amy's show. So thanks to Robert and Amy for giving me a mention there. You might want to check out their show as well. So now I've given them a mention. They also do a live stream. I think, yeah, they have a live stream sometimes. And they're from Michigan. So just like Greg, I wouldn't have known Michigan is 3 hours ahead because it's kind of on the border with Central Time and Eastern Time. It's pretty close there. But um, oh, Greg says I've seen Tom in Robert's live stream. Okay. I watched, I think it was maybe their August 3rd live stream, the full show and bits and pieces of some of their other shows. I was looking for the ones where they mentioned me, so I did a search on their channel for my name and a few shows popped up. Let's see, there was also something they reminded me of something. Oh, yeah. When Robert was mentioning my channel, he remarked on my number of subscribers, and I think he had the impression that I had gained them in a relatively a short amount of time. Um, I think he might have referred to me as a new upper. up and comer or something. Forget exactly how he put it, but I've actually been doing YouTube for over 6 years. So, but I think Robert just recently found out about my channel. So maybe if he knew how long I've been doing this, it wouldn't have seemed that I've gained the number of subscribers I have as fast as he originally thought. Um, I've got 937 subscribers last I checked, and but I only live started live streaming a few months ago. Well, I guess it's been, oh, wow, it's actually been 6 months exactly to the day because I started live streaming on March 6th of this year, and it's now September 6th. So exactly 6 months ago. So I guess Robert started hearing about me once I started live streaming. It seems like I'm relatively new on his radar. So yeah, if I did start live streaming 6 months ago and I already had over 900 subscribers, that would be a lot of subscribers in a short amount of time. But I've actually been doing this for over 6 years, not just 6 months. Um, it's just the live streaming that's new, relatively new. Um, I got some more people in the chat. RW, hello. Dutzy, hello. Dutzy's one of our Europeans in Belgium. I like knowing where people are, if you want to say. Sometimes people don't want to say. That's okay, but it's nice to know like where people are in the world uh, who are listening to me. So if you want to say where you are, that'd be interesting. Um, Greg says your Yaron Brook show super chat had some sway. Yeah, that definitely helped me get a bunch new subscribers. I did a super chat a few months ago with just a couple sentences or so about my channel, and I got I think maybe 14 subscribers as a result of doing that, um, which is a big jump for me. Like many days I don't get any new subscribers. Like I'll get zero subscribers or maybe one subscriber. It's so if to get 14 in one day, that's a big jump for my channel. Um, and the most I ever got in one day, I think, was 27 subscribers. That was after I did a Facebook ad. Well, not ad, but not technically an ad. Like I didn't pay for it, but I just put a post, an announcement. That's what I should say. I put an announcement on my Facebook page, which I talked about on stream several shows ago, and I think I got 27 subscribers the first day, but and then they continued to trickle in. I ultimately got like maybe 50 or 60 subscribers out of it. Uh, so definitely encourage new subscribers. I know there's a bunch of people who listen to my show who aren't subscribed. So if you all want to help get my subscriber numbers up, I definitely appreciate that. I still want to get up to 1,000 so I can get fully monetized. I think I'll be able to take super chats maybe within a few months. Actually, that's something I could show you here on screen. I could show you my metrics. I've told you what they are, so I think you probably have a good idea of what my metrics are if you've been watching my show, but sometimes it's nice to actually see a picture to go along with the words. So I think I'll put that on screen um, after I read this chat from Greg. He says, hence my question of where in the Pacific time zone are you? Question. Oh, I see. Sorry. I think I misunderstood. I'm in California. Um, yeah, I guess Pacific time zone could cover a lot of other places, but yeah, that's where I am. Okay, so I'll show you my metrics. And as I've said, there's two levels for monetization. there's the 500 subscriber level, which allows you to, well, there's also the watch time requirement. 500 subscribers and 3,000 hours of watch time allows me to take super chats. And then 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time allows me to have ads run on my videos. So let me just show you that in a uh, pictorial form by, let me share this screen. Yeah, I've got it queued up already. Okay, so now you should be able to see. Um, this is my YouTube analytics page, so you can see some of the behind the scenes numbers here. So here they're talking about your eligibility to get monetized. And for the first threshold, you got to have 500 subscribers. I didn't mention this part. Three video uploads within the last 90 days. And you have to have one of the following, either 3,000 hours of watch time in the last year, or if you want to meet the requirement by shorts, YouTube shorts, those very short videos, like 1 to 3 minutes, under 1 or 3 minutes. If you have 3 million views on your shorts, that's another way to get monetized and take super chats. But I don't do many shorts, so I'm more focused on the long form content. So you can see I'm already fully up there. I have way more than I need. I've got 937 subscribers, but I only need 500. I've got plenty of video uploads. So the only thing left that I need is to get some more watch time. I'm currently at about 2,100 hours in the last year, and I just need to get that up to 3,000. And at the rate I've been going with these live streams, they've been very helpful for getting my watch time up. Like I used to be down here like around 1,200. I don't think I ever got past like 12 or 1,300 when I was just uploading pre-recorded videos, non-live stream videos. But since I've been live streaming, like over the last 6 months, I've gone from like roughly here all the way up to here. So all of this is new territory for me. I've never been this high. So if I could just keep going at the same rate, I'm thinking like in the next 6 months, I should be able to get up to 3,000, and then I can start taking super chats. So that will be great. So thank you all for the watch time. And for the next threshold, to have ads running on my videos. For that one, I do need 1,000. So you can see how close I am there. I just need, what is that, 63 more subscribers. And for that, I don't need 3,000 hours. I actually need 4,000 hours of watch time. So I'm a little over halfway there to get to the higher monetization threshold for ad revenues. And there's also a way to get it through shorts, but again, I'm not working on the shorts. You can see it's like you can't even see it. It's so small, the number of views I have on my shorts videos, but I'm doing the long form content. All right, so now you've seen my actual numbers, and hopefully within several months I will be there. All right, I'm going to stop this screen share now. Well, actually, I'll leave it up, see if I have any questions in the chat related to this or comments, and then uh, no, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so I'm going to stop that screen share. And we got another chat from Greg here. Mhm. I do want to give priority to people in the chat. I got other stuff I could talk about, but if you're here live, I want to spend time on your chats. So I'm going to read Greg's shortly. I'm just going to take a quick look at my notes, see if there's anything. Oh yeah, I guess I'll save that for later. This one note I have. Uh, yeah, let me see what Greg has to say here. Just gotta mute my stream so I don't hear myself twice. Okay, Greg says Rand has f folk that consider her prophetic. Do you think that came from her philosophic development, or did her philosophic development contribute to her longer range trend identification? You definitely do hear people saying things like, "Oh, this is like something out of Atlas Shrugged, something going on in the news." Um, maybe like cronyism. All these business executives recently went to meet with Trump, I heard on the Your Own Brook show. I was listening to yesterday. He was talking about how the CEOs of Google and Apple and Facebook and Oracle and I think is it OpenAI, Sam Altman, a bunch of tech CEOs met with Trump and they were praising him. Uh, I think Iran's referred to it as a North Korea style meeting and shameful, um, which I agree with. It's unfortunate that you have these CEOs kissing up to Trump um, in order to be on his good side. And so you might think something like that is uh, has parallels in Atlas Shrugged. Um, so might be a spoiler. So, but you have businessmen who are in bed with government officials in the novel. So that's just one example. I mean, there's, um, but Greg asked, do I think that that is the fact that people consider Rand prophetic, does that come from her philosophic development, or did her philosophic development contribute to her longer range trend identification? I'm not very clear on the difference. Like if you're proposing an alternative there, I think maybe it's both. I think her philosophy was it was tied to reality. She derived her principles inductively from reality. She didn't just spin them out of her head. She studied history in college. That was her major. So that was one source of her knowledge of the world. And um, the I think in particular she focused on the Middle Ages in history, a period very different from uh, the modern world in important ways. And I think that helps one get a understanding of the range of potentialities to human beings. Like you don't just study people under one narrow condition, like people in Russia in the 20th century, but people all over Europe, you know, hundreds or thousands of years ago. You see very different sorts of conditions, and that helps you isolate like what is essential to human nature, because you don't just see people under one narrow kind of circumstance. You see them in all kinds of different circumstances, and then you can abstract out the similarities. So if you derive your philosophy, your principles from reality, then that provides you with um, greater understanding than if you don't. Um, so I think maybe the reason you can find a lot of parallels between Rand's novels and what's going on in the world today is because her philosophy is realistic. It's reality based. Um, so she understood the way the world works. Her ideas were tied to reality, and that enabled her to predict how things would go in reality. in a sense, it's just more of the same. It's just variations on themes. Um, all right. Got a new chatter here. Ann M. Um, says, I thought Yaron said he'd be on it too. Yeah, I heard him say that. So I guess my time that would be 11 a.m., which is so I guess at one time he was planning to stream the same time or start streaming the same time I started streaming, but I just went to his channel and I don't see a new stream queued up. So maybe he changed his plans. I think he said he was going to stream Sunday and then decided he was going to do Saturday at 11, but 11 my time to his time, but maybe that changed. Maybe something came up for him. I guess that means I don't have to compete with him. So I mean, maybe that's good for me in terms of getting more of an audience because I know I have a large overlap with his audience. Actually, Anne, I've heard you on his show. I think he has replied to many of your comments. Um, anyways, oh, I see we got a lot of viewers. Wow, it went up to 13. Last I checked, it was like 7 or 8. Great. Welcome. Thanks for coming by my show. Maybe I am right now the only objectivist podcaster doing a show, so I got to take advantage of that. And thanks for all the likes. It's great to see that. Thank you very much. Um, okay. I do know one Ann M. I don't know if it's the same, like I won't say the full last name, but I do know someone with that last name initial. So I don't know if you're the same Ann I'm thinking of. Oh, so we got another new person. Brady Burleson says, "Hello, Dan. Hi, Brady. Welcome to my show." I guess some of you who are new here in chat, you might have heard my show before, and I just haven't seen you in the chat because maybe you were just listening. But in any case, welcome to the Dan Norton Show, where I promote Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism. I think I forgot to say that at the start of my show today. I usually say that. That's my little 1 or 2 sentence intro to kind of orient people to my general perspective so they know right off the bat where I'm coming from. And I say it on my slide too, my virtual background slide. So I guess even if I forget to say it, you can still see it. So that's helpful. And I say much more than that. I have all these other concepts like free will, atheism, objectivity, logic, independence, integrity, etc., to give a more full sense of what this philosophy is about. Um, so I'm happy to talk about any of those topics you can see. Um, all right, so we got some more chats from Greg, which I skipped over because I just wanted to read the ones from the new people. But let me go back to these ones that I missed. Maybe I'll click on your channels too. I have a way to go to people's channels if I click on those 3 dots on the right in the chat box. I don't think you can, but as the host, I can do that. So I'm just clicking on these. Okay. Looking at Ann's channel, and I'm going to go to take a quick look at Brady's channel. It's all right. Okay. Um, RW says he has a mini part question slash problem I'll post here. Okay. That's another thing. Before I get to 1,000, you can take advantage of the fact that you can ask questions for free. Because once I get monetized, well, actually, that's not real. That's not the 1,000 subscriber. All I need is 500. It's more the watch time. Once I get my watch time up to 3,000 hours, I can start taking super chats, and then I'm going to give priority to those. So right now, it's kind of equal opportunity for everyone, so you can take advantage of that. Hmm. I thought, like, if people are part of my first, I don't know, first 1,000 subscribers, maybe I'll give you a free super chat. You can, and so even if you don't pay, I'll still give your question attention and priority. So, um, I was thinking that might be a good perk to do. So if you're one of my first 1,000 subscribers, maybe you'll get some perk like that. If you're a public subscriber, I guess you have to verify, so I can verify that you're actually subscribed. You have to change your subscription settings to public, and then I can see if you subscribe to my channel. I don't know if anyone else can, but I will be able to see it. All right, we got a bunch of chats coming in from RW. Let me just quickly go back to Greg, see if there's anything I want to comment on before I look at RW's. Um, the recent release of the Ayn Rand video had her reading real world parallels to Atlas Shrugged from her horror files. Okay. Yeah, there was a video that the Ayn Rand Institute came out with called Is Atlas Shrugging? I think they've actually had it on their channel for a while, but they recently remastered it or something, so the audio quality is better. I think that's what they were saying in their video for Atlas Shrugged Day of September 2nd when they released this. They had another video talking about the Is Atlas Shrugged video, and I think that's the one Greg is referring to. I saw some of that. I didn't see the whole thing. Maybe I'll get to it later. Greg says she developed objectivism to be able to write Atlas Shrugged. She said, yeah, um, she had to create her own philosophy that's to go along with her vision of the ideal man. There wasn't a previous philosophy in existence which had everything she needed. She was very heavily influenced by Aristotle and considered him the greatest philosopher, at least prior to her. Um, I don't know if she had a view on herself versus Aristotle. Like, I don't know if she would say, even after she had done her own philosophical work, if Aristotle was still the greatest philosopher rather than her. I don't recall her ever commenting on that, but at least the greatest before her. So Aristotle had a lot that she built on, more than anyone else, but she still had to develop objectivism further than what Aristotle um, had discovered. And there were some corrections that she had to make to his point of view. Like, I think Aristotle was somewhat disdainful of productivity. He thought that was sort of not the part of a best part of life. The philosophical contemplative life was the highest form of life. Um, so you might see that as a bit of a mind-body dichotomy. Just this life of the mind is the only worthy or the most worthy sort of life, but the physical productive labor, I think Aristotle looked down on, or at least wasn't as enthusiastic about. Maybe that's a remnant of Platonism. He was a student of Plato for a while, and Plato definitely had a mind-body dichotomy. So I think that was one of the areas of philosophy where Ayn Rand improved. And of course, slavery. Um, um, that's very antithetical to objectivism. But in the Greek world, it was endorsed, including by Aristotle. I mean, I think he thought it was good for the slaves. Like it was, there was different kinds of natures different people had, and some people were just fit to be slaves. So it's not like it wasn't good for them in his view. I think he said it was, but that's another mistake. You might say it's an evasion. I don't know. I guess you could debate that. Like, can you honestly think that there are really like fundamentally different types of human beings, such that some are more fit to be slaves and others aren't? Um, I haven't thought about that a lot, but I think it's an interesting question. Like, could you could you ever honestly think that? Maybe could you think that at certain times in history, like maybe in the ancient Greek world, or maybe 10,000 years before that? Um, could you think that in the Enlightenment, like during the era of the founding fathers? That was much more recent. It's only 250 or so years ago. Um, and some of them had slaves, and there was a debate even at that time. It wasn't like everyone was completely comfortable with it and saw it as a good thing. Um, no, there was some debate of among the founders of this country, of the USA. But what if we go back, more than 2,000, 2,500 years, not just 250 years, so 10 times further back to Aristotle's time, at least roughly. Is it the same then? Like, should he have known better? Um, I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it that much, but I think it's an interesting question. Okay, and then Greg says the Middle Ages span roughly 1,000 years, ending between 1400 and 1450. Yeah. Some people put the start at the fall of Rome. And of course, it was a long process, a centuries long process. There was a decay of Roman civilization, but the final sack of Rome in 476, I think a lot of people use that year as the start of the Middle Ages. Sometimes it's convenient just to have a specific year as a reference point, but it's a gradual process. But and then you have the Renaissance, the rebirth of the ancient worlds around the times that Greg mentions there. So um, some people put it at like 1500, a convenient reference point for the start of the modern world. So 476 to 1500, that's about 1,000 years. Yeah. And then the Dark Ages is the first half of that. So you can be more fine-grained about it, and you can divide it into the early Middle Ages, the high Middle Ages, and the late Middle Ages. And the early Middle Ages is about 500 years, so roughly 500 to 1,000, those years. And those are what have been called the Dark Ages because uh, so much had been lost, the knowledge of the ancient Greek and Roman world um, during that period. And there was just barbarians and brutality and the rise of the church. The church became more powerful. Um, and but in I guess in the late Middle Ages, the high and late Middle Ages, there starts to be a rediscovery, like Thomas Aquinas resurfaced Aristotle. Well, I think Aristotle had been discovered before that, but I guess he gained more prominence via Thomas Aquinas, who was in the 1200s. So I guess that would be part of the High Middle Ages, roughly 1,000 to 1,300. I think that's where some scholars date the High Middle Ages, and then the Late Middle Ages is some scholars will put it at 1,300 to 1,500, and that's where you get the Age of Discovery. People like Columbus starting to explore the world, and it becomes a more secular. period. You have transition to Renaissance art, more this worldly instead of these, symbolic, emaciated Jesuses on the cross. You have a more like physically robust, realistic looking sort of uh, Jesuses. And I think this is reflective of the fact that people are more observant of the actual world. They're not just symbols of some otherworldly place. They're more attuned to this world here on Earth, even though the subject matter is the contents is still otherworldly, this otherworldly supernatural religious figures. The content is otherworldly, but the style is more this worldly. It's you can tell artists are paying attention to how things actually look in this world, and they find ways to represent that in their art. Okay, Greg says he thinks Iran took the weekend off per yesterday's show, or he changed it after I had to leave after the news. Okay. All right. So now we get up to RW's questions, or uh, let's see what he has to say. He says, I'm struggling with the idea of doing something that's right, and he puts right in quotes. Something that's right, but doesn't help me in my lifetime. For example, supporting freer immigration policies could mean more people competing for my job at lower pay. That could mean I lose my job and have to fight to find a new career. This feels especially hard because I have a young family and I'm the only income provider. It seems like the net benefit to the economy might take years and wouldn't reach my family soon. Okay. We've talked about immigration before, RW and I in the chat. So we can talk some more about it today. So you put right in quotes, so I guess that means you're not fully convinced it's right for there to be restrictions on immigration. I think that's what you mean. So you're struggling with the idea that it's right to put restrictions on immigration, or I guess you mean no restrictions. It's right to have no restrictions, but it doesn't help you. So I guess that's the conflict you're in. It seems good to do this thing, but it also seems good to do something opposite. So it's right, or at least maybe right, because you put it in quotes. You don't want to fully commit to it. It's right in quotes. Oh, you say Chat GPT added that quote? Weird. I do think it's right. Oh, okay. So you didn't put those quotes around the word right yourself. Okay. Okay. Well, anyways, I think I get the conflicts. Um, and then let me just reread this. So you say supporting freer immigration policies could mean more people competing for your job at lower pay. This could mean I lose my job, and you have to fight to find a new career. And it's hard for you because you have a young family and you're the only income provider. And it could take a long time, maybe years, you say, to see the benefit of the open immigration. Okay, well, one that I have on all this is I don't think it's necessarily going to take years. I think some benefits, at least, you could see immediately. Like maybe you want to hire someone to be your gardener. You could hire some Mexican immigrant to be your gardener or to be your house cleaner, to be your babysitter. You say you have a family, a young family. Um, you're the only income provider. What if you could hire for cheap a Mexican nanny to take care of your family or help take care of your kids? I don't know if you have one kid or multiple kids, and maybe your partner could be another income provider. Maybe she could, or at least it would be easier for her to take care of the kids if she had someone to help her. If it's a her, I don't want to. You can tell me if I got that wrong, but I'll assume that for now, I guess. Maybe you could get very cheap help. Now, this kind of goes along with other issues. So there's minimum wage laws, right? So if you could have immigrants coming in, but you had to hire them at according to minimum wage laws, and you couldn't pay below that, maybe it's still hard to afford that. But if we have multiple things that are right, assuming they're right, that would include open immigration and no minimum wage laws, then maybe you could hire some very cheap labor to help you out. So that's one way in which, if we had a free society, you could start benefiting from it very soon. And also, I guess in other industries, like let's say you need to get your car fixed, you need to take it into a auto shop. And if that auto shop could hire immigrants more cheaply because people have to compete for their labor. So it's not just you who I don't know what your industry is, but people in your industry, uh, I guess you'll face more competition from immigrants who try to compete with you in your industry, but there's also immigrants in other industries who would be competing there. So let's in the car industry, for instance, now you need to get your car fixed, but maybe the prices are much lower because if we had open immigration and the new immigrants bid down the price of labor among car mechanics, now when you need to go get your car fixed, maybe it's a much cheaper bill. And same with you go out to eat at restaurants. Think about all these industries that you use. In all those industries, you have immigrants flooding the market and bidding down the price of labor because given where they're coming from, uh, even if they're making less than what Americans are used to, then they're still happy with that because for them it seems like a raise given where they're coming from. So you look at the economy as a whole, you might find that things are getting much cheaper overall, even if in your particular industry, maybe you lose your job, but you could find some other job. Um, there's not only I don't know how tied you are to your job. I guess there's certain people are like Howard Rourke in The Fountainhead, uh, who I was talking about, or I was talking about him with Holden because Holden, who called into my last show, is reading The Fountainhead right now, or I don't know, maybe he's finished it, but he was reading about Howard Rourke and he commented how Rourke is so committed to his job as an architect. He's in love with that field. Um, now even Rourke, he left architecture at least at least for a while. I don't know if he's going to go back to it. I don't want to spoil anything. We'll see. I think Holden was in part two, and Rourke had to close his job as an architect, close his office because he couldn't get the commissions he wanted. Um, like the Manhattan Bank building, the people who offered him that wanted to make these tweaks to his design. He said, "No, I can't. I can't accept that. So he ended up working in a granite quarry. So even if you are in love with your job, you could still find other work at least temporarily. Sometimes you might have to do that. And doesn't mean you can never go back to whatever you're passionate about. But maybe temporarily, you'll have to do something like that. I don't know if you're in a career like that right now. Like, I don't know if you have. Sometimes people don't know what their career passion is. Maybe they don't have a career passion. They just, and that's something that I think people sometimes struggle with. Like, how can I find a career I really love? Um, for me, it's promoting objectivism and doing live streaming. This is one of my favorite things to do. I'm not making money at it yet, but I'm trying to. That's the goal. So right now, I have to do other things in the meantime to make money to pay the bills. But hopefully, I can eventually make this self-sustaining financially, and then this can be a self-sustaining career. Um, but sometimes you've got to do other things in the meantime. And I don't know, like if you're in a sort of job, RW, that is like something you would consider your passion, or do you just consider it something temporary you need to do? I guess if it's more the latter, it's just a way to pay the bills, um, then maybe it's not as big a deal if you have to leave it for a while, or maybe permanently and find some other job. It's not to you as architecture is to Howard Rourke. If it is more like architecture is for Howard Rourke, then I guess it's harder to leave the job, I would guess. But as I said, even Rourke left his job at least temporarily. Um, all right, but let me see. I see we got some more chats coming in. Let me look at some more of these. So I think that at least addresses some of RW's points. Let me skip ahead to his other points, and then I'll come back to some of the ones I missed. RW says, yes, my wife, we both want her to take care of the kids. I guess there might be some temporary pain moving from a mixed economy to free, hopefully quickly relieved. Okay, so you've got multiple kids, but you want her to take care of the kids, and she also wants, yeah, some people like to do it themselves. Also, education, like I don't know what age your kids are, but some people like to do homeschooling, um, but that's going to cost more than public schools. But some people find that worth it, but some people maybe they're in a financial situation where they can't afford private education, either homeschooling or private schools. So they find it necessary to use public schools. I don't know if your kids are even going to school yet. Maybe they're very young, but actually, I think there's a lot you can learn. I mean, I learned so much just reading Wikipedia. I mean, that's such an amazing source, and there might be other good sources out there that are even free just on the internet that your kids could learn from. So, like some people, even if they do send their kids to public schools, they might try to get a private tutor um, to supplement their education because maybe the public school education is very bad. Um, but even if you can't afford a private tutor, there's still the internet, and there's a ton of stuff you can learn from the internet. So I don't know if you could find a way to use that as like a free resource to help. Um, but RDB says it feels pretty impossible to quickly find a different career with the same level of pay. Hence why I need the benefit to the economy to be quick. Maybe the answer is bigger savings. Maybe I could stay in my career and take the lower pay. Okay. There's also other ways you could reduce your expenses, maybe by moving to a cheaper place, either in the same geographic area. Like maybe you could, I don't know, do you have a four-bedroom house and you're using one of those bedrooms as a study? Or could you get a smaller house? Could you get a smaller apartment? Could you move to a different city that's cheaper? Do you have two cars? Could you get by with one car? I mean, there's so many ways you could try to cut down on expenses to make things more workable. Um, could you rent out one of your rooms to somebody? And that way you wouldn't have to move, but you would have cheaper bills because someone else is helping pay them. But yeah, I don't think giving up on freedom, assuming that's what it is, like to put restrictions on immigration, I don't think that's a good solution. Um, I think you want to have more freedom, not less. So find ways to have more freedom. But yeah, there might be some challenges, at least temporarily, that you just can't really avoid. I think life does come with risk and challenges. It's not necessarily always going to be smooth sailing. Um, you say you're already in a low cost of living area, but downsizing sounds like not a benefit to me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to consider, so many details about your situation. Um, maybe if I knew more of the details, I would be able to come up with some more suggestions. But I've given you at least some of my thoughts. So, uh, but I want to look at some of these other chats. But feel free to keep chatting on this topic if you want, RW. And maybe I'll have some more thoughts I can give you later. See, Evolutionary has put in a couple chats. Uh, Greg and Burley or Brady. Greg says they found a better quality video in a public library somewhere. Oh, okay. I guess that's the you're referring to the Ayn Rand video on titled "Is Atlas Shrugging?" So this was a nonfiction. Oh, I guess she gave it as a talk somewhere some years after Atlas Shrugged was published in 1957. And I think maybe the talk was 1964. Um, I'm not sure, but so the Ayn Rand Institute archivists uh, found a better quality video of that talk in some public library. I guess that's what Greg means. So that's the one they recently released on the channel. Okay. Brady asks, didn't Rand have a positive view of Thomas Aquinas? Yes. Um, as Greg says in the next chat, she once said the three A's of philosophy were Aristotle, Aquinas, and Ayn Rand. And she ref they were all being referred to in a positive light. Now Aquinas was, I think, kind of half and half because he was trying to reconcile faith and reason, which you can't really do, but that's what he tried to do. But he was at least bringing reason back. So instead of just having a philosophy of pure faith or that's dominated by faith, he at least made a large step to bringing reason back by trying to reconcile Aristotle with Christianity, which again, I don't think you can do, but that's what he wanted to do. I think he might have decided at the end of his life that his work was a failure because he didn't succeed in reconciling Aristotle's philosophy with Christianity. I seem to recall hearing some story about that. But I also remember him saying that if there is a conflict between faith and reason, you should follow reason. So that's definitely an indication that, reason is making a comeback in the world, in the Western world, in the Western mind. So that's extremely important. So you can see why Ayn Rand would have admiration for Aquinas, despite all his religious baggage. Um, so Brady, I would say it's not as pure as her admiration was for Aristotle, and not as strong. Also, I don't think Aquinas was as original as Aristotle. Aristotle came up with an entire new philosophy on so many areas, and I don't think Aquinas was that original. Um, yeah, I think she might have described Aquinas as the handmaiden of reason or something like that. She wrote an essay called For the New Intellectual, which gives a very sweeping overview, covers like a mountaintop perspective on history. And there's one line there about the role of Thomas Aquinas, and I think she might have described him as the handmaiden of reason. Um, he's kind of a transitionary figure from the Middle Ages, the Age of Faith, to the modern era when reason was more dominant. Sometimes it's called the Age of Reason, like the 17th and 18th century. You have figures like Isaac Newton who are using their minds to discover these amazing truths about the world, like the universal law of gravitation. Um, and Aquinas helped inaugurate that age of reason by bringing Aristotle's philosophy back into prominence. Yeah, I don't recall either, Greg, when Rand said that, the three A's. Godspeed is here. Um, Hi, Godspeed. He says, "Are you ready to witness Jehovah?" I'm not sure what prompted that comment. Maybe if I read through some more of these chats, I'll see. Um, all right. So, Evolutionary says, could you review the evolutionary game theory video from Khan Academy at 255, where it says that evolution selects for altruistic traits in a society because of group selection? Maybe I can do that. Let me see if I can find that. And then you say it contradicts Rand's criticism, both of altruism and collectivism. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick Google search for that video. I'm not going to watch it right now. Maybe I will later in the stream, or at least a little part of it that you mentioned. You say at 2:55. But let me just Google it and see if I can find a video. Okay, on the Khan Academy. Okay, I just found a video it says maybe I'll share this screen. You can tell me if it's the one you're talking about. Oh, just a sec. Okay, is that the one you're talking about here? You say it's at 2:55? Let me just zoom ahead to that part and maybe I can see if it's discussing. I didn't turn on the sounds. Altruism. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's the one you're talking about. Okay. Maybe I'll look at this a little later. I want to look through some more of the chat right now, but I've got it queued up, so um, yeah, maybe I'll come back to this soon. We'll see. Okay, gonna close some of these windows. I got too many windows open. Okay, Evolutionary confirms that is the video. All right, so maybe I'll come back to that, but I want to read some of these chats now. RW says, thanks, Dan, for answering my question. Both times I've asked immigration, I guess you mean both times I've asked about immigration. I think you've done a really good job. Thanks, I appreciate that. I hope I do a really good job when start getting super chats, because then I'm getting paid. But I've thought about that. Like, what should be my attitude towards, I've thought maybe I should tell people to just consider it to be a donation, not like payment for a question. So if it turns out that I give a answer that isn't really good, then I can still take the money. Um, I mean, I do want it to be value for value. I would like to give really good answers, but I can't guarantee that, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe you ask a question that is like above my pay grade, or I'm just not very knowledgeable about it. And if it's like that, then I mean, I suppose one thing I could do is I could like try to refund you if I think I don't give a good answer, if you're not satisfied with an answer. It could be like a money back guarantee. But um, and then I could like send you money by PayPal or something. But that might be too much of a hassle to try to do that and like have all these multi-part transactions going on. So I thought maybe when people do super chats, they should just consider it a donation, like regardless of how good the answer is. In their opinion or my opinion, they're just helping support the channel, and that way, um, I don't feel bad if like if as I would if it was like a pay for service kind of thing, and people feel like they don't get their money's worth. Um, I'm not sure. This is something I'll have to think about more. Exactly what is the best way to do things um, once I start taking super chats. But anyways, those are some of my early thoughts. But at least in this case, I'm glad, RW, you think I did a really good job. I appreciate that. And then we get to Godspeed's question as to whether I'm ready to witness Jehovah. Actually, that reminds me of something I had in my notes I thought I might talk about. I guess maybe I'll spend a few minutes talking about it now. Um, I was recently approached by Mormons. I was in a parking lot at the grocery store, and I'm putting my groceries in my car, and these Mormon missionaries. Well, it's just one actually. There's multiple that like going around the parking lot, but one of them comes up to me and he starts a conversation. You've seen these Mormons go around, like they're usually young men, maybe around the age of 20, and they've got the white dress shirt on. I think short sleeve usually, and their dark pants and maybe a tie. I think that's like the standard dress for Mormon missionaries. And people around this age, I think it's required. Like if you're part of the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, um, young men are required to do a mission for 2 years around the age of 20. I think some of them they go overseas, some of them they do it in their home country. So these seem like American kids. Um, and one of them comes up to me in the parking lot and he strikes up a conversation, and it's just um, kind of random topics at first, and then I can see he's trying to steer it to um, the issue of religion, and I forget exactly how it got us there, but um, we at a certain point we start debating the existence of God, and I tell him I'm an atheist, and we start talking about miracles, like, well, how do you explain miracles, or what are miracles? And we have this discussion, and um, there's there's some standard back and forth between like a theist and an atheist, and I won't go through it all. Probably similar things you might have heard. Um, well, yeah, I don't know if I've discussed them on my channel. Anyways, we talk about atheism for a while, and then at a certain point, I say, yeah, I've heard all these arguments before. Um, and I think he gets the idea that he's not really going to persuade me. So maybe he decides his time is better spent um, proselytizing somebody else. But as he's exiting the conversation, he says, I guess since he can't persuade me, he says, well, he invites me to church for before he leaves. Actually, he says, "Do you want to come to church tomorrow?" And I say, "No, thanks." Um, and then he says, "Do you know anyone else who might benefit from Jesus's message?" And I say, "Actually, no. I think it's a bad message, and I actually try to steer people away from Jesus's message. I think it's very bad." And then he was kind of taken aback. Whoa. And he told me, like, I've met atheists before, but I haven't met anyone who said something like that. Like someone who is, I guess he took it to be like I was challenging the morality, not just the metaphysics of Christianity. So atheists, right? They don't believe in the God, but I think many of them still uh, have a kind of secularized version of altruism. Like most people, whether they're nominally religious or not, they think it's bad to be selfish and it's good to be altruistic. And I've talked before on my show about how socialism is kind of a secularized version of religious ethics. Now you're no longer sacrificing for God, but you're sacrificing for society or the state or the collective under socialism. But you're still sacrificing, so you maintain the essence of the moral code of Christianity. It's just the recipient of the sacrifice is no longer a supernatural being. Now it's a secularized being, which is still kind of mystical in a way if you think that there is some society over and above individuals to receive sacrifices. But it is a more secular version of sacrifice, but it's still self-sacrifice. So that's really what I oppose. But I thought it was really interesting to me that he observed this uniqueness, which I think objectivism is pretty unique in offering. It's not just anti-miracles and the mystical theology, but the moral code. That is also something that objectivism strongly opposes. I didn't use the term objectivism with him, but I did say that I think Jesus has a bad message, and I try to steer people away from it. And once it got to that point, he closed out the conversation, and I was happy to go on. Like at that point, I was like, all right, now we're getting somewhere interesting. I would have been happy to continue, but he decided to go off and find somebody else to talk to. Uh, so so the most interesting part of this interaction for me was just how unique objectivism is, in that someone recognized it. I didn't have to tell him about this, but he observed it in a way, in his own words, when he said, "Yeah, I've met many atheists," or something like that, but I haven't heard anyone say this. It also reminded me of the Jefferson Bible. So, Thomas Jefferson, many of the founding fathers, I think they were deists. So this was a view which holds that there is a God, but he doesn't work these miracles. Um, so he just kind of he created the universe, and then he stepped back and he just let it go on its own. And so he's not working miracles. And Jefferson cut out of the Bible the miracles, or at least part of the Bible. Um, I don't know exactly how he did it, but he left in the ethical content. So the ethics of Jesus is still in there, but he's just opposing the mystical, supernatural kind of metaphysics of the religion. But objectivism is unique in that it opposes both the mystical metaphysics, the miracles, and all that, but also the the ethics of self-sacrifice. Um, I don't know if it's 100% unique, but at least there aren't many. Like I was thinking about Nietzsche as a predecessor, Nietzsche was also critical of Christianity and its ethics of altruism. Um, I'm not sure what Nietzsche's view of the supernatural aspect of Christianity was, but at least the ethics, I know he was opposed to it. Anyway, so I was reminded of that by Godspeed's question as to whether I'm ready to witness Jehovah. Florida Nick is here. He says you should have asked him if he wanted to be a guest on the channel. I think that crossed my mind. I did mention to him that I had a channel, I think. But I don't think I think I asked him if he had heard of Ayn Rand, and I said I promote Ayn Rand on my channel. I maybe if he seemed more open-minded, I would have um, made it about that, but he seems pretty intent on not really considering alternative views. He just wanted to proselytize. That's the vibe I got. So, um, but yeah, if he seemed more open-minded, maybe I would have invited him to come on my channel. Maybe he thought about what I said more later, uh, when he was on his own, but at that time, at least, he didn't seem to want to engage further with me. Um, Ducey says Christianity and its emphasis on altruism is probably the worst thing that happened to Europeans. What about the Holocaust? I mean, I think that's all this stuff you could find relationships between them. Like the ideas that led to the Holocaust are maybe the same ideas that are involved in Christianity, like self-sacrifice, but now it's kind of the secularized version. We're now sacrificing for the Führer or for the state rather than sacrificing for God. So I think there is a similarity, or for sacrifice for the race, the Aryan race. Um, all right, I'm just trying scanning the chat here to see what I want to focus on. See, we got some comments from Brady, Godspeed, Greg, Evolutionary, Anne, Florida Nick. Oh, I guess I just read that one from Florida Nick. Dutzy. All right. I got a lot here to choose from, which is great. Thank you for all this participation in the chat. Um, I guess it's kind of luxury that I have so many chats to choose from. Um, uh, and thanks for the likes on the stream. Take a and thanks for any new subscribers. Okay. Um, when did I start? Started 11. I think maybe I'll need a break soon. Oh, that reminds me of something I wanted to say. I think in the future when I take a break from the stream, usually I think it'll be like 7 or 8 minutes. Um, last stream I did this, I forgot to I disconnected Zoom, which is what I used as a source of my broadcast here. I stream from Zoom to YouTube, and I cut that stream during my break, and I forgot to reestablish it after my break. For like 10 or 15 minutes, I was just talking by myself, and no one was hearing me. So sorry about that. But um, I think instead of cutting the stream, it's better if I just let it continue, and I will maybe maybe I'll take a break now and then explain why I do it that way after I come back. So you all can keep chatting. I encourage you to keep chatting, but I'm going to take like a seven or so minute break now, and then I'll come back and engage with some of these chats and explain what I just said about why I think maybe it's better not to cut the stream from Zoom when I go on a break. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to turn off my mic and camera, and then we can continue. All right. And I'll change my name. It says Dan Norton down in the lower left corner, but I'm going to change that to Dan Norton will be back shortly so that people who come by during the break will know what's going on. And then that's what's going to show up once I turn off my camera. All right. See you soon. Okay, I am back. Thanks for being here on my Ayn Rand promoting live stream. All right, so I said I was going to explain why I don't cut the Zoom stream. And the reason is because your chats will disappear if I do that, or at least during the section when the stream is cut. So I'm going to show you what happens in the last live stream. So YouTube has a live chat replay, which you can watch after the live stream. And so you can see the chats, um, and they come into the chat box, at the time that they appear. Um, it's, but like if I had cut the Zoom stream, the stream from Zoom to YouTube while I'm on break, then all those chats that happen, if any, I don't know if there were any new chats, but if there are any chats that happen, yeah, it looks like there were some today from Evolutionary. I see. Like all those chats would not have been preserved in the live chat replay. Now they would be preserved in the comments. So I usually copy and paste all the comments into a comment below the live stream, so you can at least see them there. Um, but they wouldn't be preserved in the live chat replay. And let me just show you what I mean. Again, sometimes it's good to have a picture. Um, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so that's that's the stream from last live stream, and I'm going to I put these notes in the if I scroll down to the comments all the way down here. See, this is where I copy and paste the live chat into comments. So there's some advantages to doing it. This way you don't have to wait to see it. Like it might be easier to find something. You can do a find in a search. Let me expand this. It might be good for to have it in this form. Unfortunately, like the way it gets parsed when you do a copy and paste, if you're like the number one chatter, you know how it shows the badge next to your name. If you're like the top chatter in terms of these experience points, they call them. They just recently added this. When I just do a copy and paste, it separates it all out into like three separate lines. And there's no space between 2:38 p.m. and the person's name, so sometimes it's a little difficult to parse. Um, but also, like if for some reason there's a YouTube does not preserve the live chat replay, like the entire replay, I've at least got it here in the comments. And there has been, I think, one or two times where I couldn't have a live chat replay on the entire stream. I don't know why, but even if that does happen, you've at least got it here in the comments. So that's another advantage of copy and pasting them here. Now you can't fit all the entire chat history or the entire chat log for a given live stream into one comments, so I have to break them up. You'll see here in a second, um, where that break. Yeah, right here. So this is the last chat that fit into this comment. I don't know what the limit is, but like if I paste these into a Google Doc, like 5 pages worth of comments, I think roughly that amount will fit into a single comment. Sorry, 5 pages worth of chats in Google Docs, 5 Google Doc pages will fit into one comment on YouTube. So I have to reply to that and to continue. So you see 418, right? So this is the next comment. Um, but I had to put it in a new chat. and then we can. So there are three total replies I had to do here to fit the entire chat from last live stream into the comments. Um, one other thing about, I guess, a possible advantage of doing it this way is you also get to see the exact time it happens, like 4:18 p.m. Pacific. It's going to show you my time because I'm copying my chat log. Whereas if you just watch the live chat replay, it's not going to give you the time of day, like with the PM or AM. It's just going to give you the time during the video. Like if this happens an hour and 30 minutes into the video, it's going to say 1:30, right? So instead of giving like a time of day timestamp, it's going to give you a timestamp of just where during the video it happens. And sometimes I refer to chats like by the exact time of day during a live stream. So this way it might be easier to follow where I am. Um, but um, anyways, what I wanted to show you here, the main thing I wanted to show you is the part that got cut off last time when I took a break and I cut the Zoom stream. I think that might be in the maybe it's in the third or the fourth reply. Here's the last one. Oh, I guess yeah, so here's one. Oh no, that wasn't during the break. That was I think that was after the break. Actually, I can just do a search on brackets because I've oh here it is. Um yeah, here's brackets. But before I get to that one, I want to do go to one other place with brackets. Yeah, so here's what I was looking for. So, 4:15 is when I took my break last time, and all the chats after that for like 25 minutes you will not find them in the live chat replay. So I say the following chats until 4:39, so that's 24 minutes later. Um, do not appear in the live chat replay because the YouTube stream was temporarily interrupted during my break. So all these chats you can only see here in the comments. I guess it continues into this next comment until 4:39, where I put another note in. Oh, I guess it goes to the last comment. Yeah, Audrey and Evolutionary were having a long back and forth during that break. Um, so here at 4:39, I say the preceding chats going back to 4:15 p.m. do not appear in the live chat replay because, yeah, again, the YouTube stream was interrupted. And now starting here again, you will see those with if you watch the live chat replay. Um, and then it happened again. I lost some chats later in the live stream because I cut the stream to screen a caller. Somebody called in on Zoom and I wasn't sure if I wanted to take the call. So I screened them using Zoom, but I didn't want I talked to the person for like a few minutes, but I didn't want those few minutes um, to show up or to be heard by everyone else. So here's that um, note I mentioned that when I was screening the caller and it was taking longer than I thought. Like I thought it might just take a minute, but it was like I don't know 5 minutes or something. So I wanted to let the chat know what was going on. I just said I'm still screening the caller, and then later I added in this editorial notes saying this chat does not appear in the live chat replay because the YouTube stream was temporarily interrupted while I was screening the caller. So I won't have to do this kind of thing in the future if I never cut the stream from Zoom and just let it play, even though I'm not going to be there on camera. I guess I could just turn off my mic and then I would be on camera. But anyways, I think in the future, if I need to take a break, it's probably better if I don't cut the Zoom stream because that way all these chats won't be they'll appear in the live chat replay and I won't have to come in here and like manually add these notes or yeah. So eh, just wanted to explain that. But let me stop this share now and come back to today's chat. Okay, so I see we got a bunch more from Evolutionary and one from Dootsy. Greg came back. Um, Anne says, do people ever say that about objectivists? I don't know what Anne is referring to there. Say what about objectivists? That's from 12:14 p.m. Pacific. See, that's a time where I referred to a chat by its timestamp to make it easier for other people, at least following the live stream, because I think that you can toggle on timestamps, at least on your laptop if you use a laptop, so you can quickly find that chat that I just read. But later, if you're not watching this live, it's not going to say 12:14 p.m. Pacific in the live chat replay. It's just going to give you, let's see, I started at 11, so 12:14 would be an hour and 14 minutes into the dream. So instead of saying 12:14, it's going to say 1:14. And then it's not going to give you a PM, right? Because it's not about the time of day. It's just how far into the stream it is. Um, all these technical details I'm giving you. Um, I like to cover stuff like that at least once to make clear how things work. So let's see. I don't know if Brady is still here, but I think I got up to his comment at 11:58 a.m. I think that was the last one that I hadn't responded to, or the earliest one I hadn't responded to. I don't know if you're still here, Brady. Um, I'm more inclined to discuss a comment if the person is here, because I like to engage with people who are here live. So, um, if you could let me, oh, Brady says he's still here. Okay, thanks for letting me know. So that gives me motivation to engage with your comment. All right, let me go back to it. Um, okay, so it says that it says, What's your view on the two-party system and the broader culture war at large? Do you think one side is worse than the other? Do you think it even matters if there's a lesser of two evils? Well, we have a multi-party system. It's not just two parties. There are other parties as well, like the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the American Capitalist Party. They're much smaller, but it's not limited to two parties. But yeah, there are just two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. Um, as to whether I think one side is worse than the other, I think it varies like from election to election. Like some election cycles, I think the Republican side is better. Other election cycles, I think the Democrat side is better. Um, the first time I voted for a president in a presidential election was in 2012. So that was Obama running for his second term versus Mitt Romney. And in that cycle, I voted for Mitt Romney, who was the Republican. But I think that's actually the only time I voted for a Republican. I think in all the subsequent Republican elections, I didn't vote for either candidate because I thought they were both very bad, which is not to say I thought they were equally bad, but um, I didn't think one was um, good enough to vote for, even as a lesser of evils. So in 2016, it was Trump versus Hillary. So I didn't vote for either one. Um, uh, that one was Trump's first election, so he was relatively new, and I don't think I viewed either one as like a lesser of evils. I was I could have gone either way. Like if I had to vote for one, I'm not sure who I would have voted for. And then in 2020, so it was Trump versus Biden, and that one I again didn't vote for either. Um, I think I wrote in John Galt actually for the 2016. So I didn't vote for Trump or Hillary, but I think I wrote in John Galt. Uh, and then in 2020, I don't think I wrote in anyone. So I didn't vote for anyone in 2020, neither Trump nor Biden. And I'm not sure if I would have considered Biden a lesser evil than Trump at that point. Maybe I would have at that point because I had 4 years by that point to observe Trump in office. I thought he did a lot of bad things. Um, but I wasn't very familiar with Biden. I didn't know his track record very well, but um, maybe if I thought about it more, I would have decided if I had to vote, I would vote for Biden. Not because I like the guy, but because he's maybe at least slightly lesser of an evil than Trump. And then 2024, I again did not vote for either major candidate, Trump or Kamala Harris. And I wrote it in myself, I think. I think I wrote myself in as Dan Norton for president. Um, Now, in 2024, I do think if I had to choose a lesser of evil, I would have voted for Kamala, I think. I think there's just so much bad about Trump by that point, especially January 6th and his election denialism, and much more besides that. But that, like, if I had to like cite one factor that I think made him a clear greater evil, it would be his lies about the election and his role in um, fomenting, instigating the January 6th riots. And then um, I guess it wasn't until he actually got elected, but and then he pardoned the whole those people. I think it's just awful, horrible, and there's so much bad. So yeah, I think if I had to vote for a lesser of evil, I would have chosen Kamala in 2024. But I didn't vote for either of them. Um, and I didn't go through all the midterm elections, but I'll at least say that about the presidential, the top of the ticket election. Um, yeah, Trump is horrible. Um, okay, so there's a little on Brady's comments. I don't know if there's more I should say, but I got a lot of, maybe I should go to some of these other comments. Oh, Brady says he held his nose and voted for Trump in 2020 because he was worried about Biden's cognitive decline. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely worth considering. Godspeed says Newton Newton wouldn't like quantum field theory or the quantum eraser experiment. I don't know what the quantum eraser experiment is, but I do think it's a different kind of mechanics than Newtonian mechanics. Well, I wonder why you think you wouldn't like it. Maybe if you were living today and he had seen all the intervening history of science, maybe he would have liked some of the quantum field theory. I don't know, but I guess we can't assume just because he had a different theory that he wouldn't like an alternative theory, at least if he were aware of the evidence that came to light after he was around. Greg says it may have been in a Q&A to Leonard Peikoff's pre-Oprah lectures that Rand had attended and answered some questions to. I guess you mean when she refers to the three A's, Aristotle, Aquinas, and Ayn Rand. Is Rand from the Austrian school? Asks Godspeed. Well, Rand was not an economist. She read Mises and at least some Mises. I don't know what other. I guess she read Henry Hazlitt. I think I so I think she read some people from the Austrian School of Economics, but I don't know if I would say she's from that school since she's not an economist. Like maybe you could say she agrees with that school, or at least with parts or important parts aspects of that school. Um, oh, then Evolutionary says Rand isn't from the Austrian school. I don't know if she's from any school when it comes to economics. I mean, you could say she's sympathetic to certain schools, but I mean, from the schools, I don't know. Maybe you have to be an economist for that to apply. But von Mises is the one she cites the most in her book, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. All right, I don't know what this comment means from Godspeed. Would she be Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do? Evolutionary says the Austrian school is focused on subjectivism as its base, but I'm having a hard time seeing how Rand's ethics isn't also based on a type of subjectivism, since her definition of value is subjective. Okay, I don't think I would agree with that, that her definition of value is subjective. But we've talked about that some before, I think, and maybe we can talk about it more. I will mention here, though, that there is an article by Rob Tarr in a book called Foundations of a Free Society, something like that, edited by Gregory Salmieri and Robert Mayhew, I think, and I think that's the third volume in a series put out by the Ayn Rand Philosophical Studies, or no, it's the Ayn Rand Society is the group behind these books, and they have these meetings from time to time. Talks are given at the meetings, and sometimes those talks are published in these books. And there was a series of these books, one on ethics, one on epistemology, and one on politics. And the one on politics is called Foundations of a Free Society. And in that book, there's an essay on economics by Rob Tarr, which discusses the relation of Austrian economics to um, objectivism. Actually, maybe I should pull this up on screen. So if you want to know about how objectivism relates to the Austrian school of economics, I would recommend reading that chapter. There's also some talks that I see when I just Googled it. Yeah, I'll just share this screen. Okay, so here you see there's Rob Tarr, and this is an interview with the Ayn Rand Institute 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So you can read, you can watch that. Like if you don't want to buy the book, you can at least watch this interview. These are the editors. Oh, Greg Salmieri and Robert Mayhew. You see them in that picture there. I can't put my cursor over it to point exactly at them because if I do that, it'll start showing the video. And that's the book cover behind them. Greg is on the left. Robert is on the right. Um, a new book explores Ayn Rand's unique defense of capitalism and her influence on the libertarian movement. And then that's for the book as a whole, that little description. And then this little description about Rob's interview. It says this is oh oh maybe this is generated by AI because it looks like there's some typos here. This is an outstanding book that takes a deep look into Ayn Rand's should be Ayn Rand's arguments and justification for capitalism for what she okay, there's some typos or grammatical errors there, so I guess that was maybe not a human description. Okay, there's an article in New Ideal, a publication by the Ayn Rand Institute about the whole book. Another article specifically with Rob Tarr. Um, I just want to see what let me stop this for a second. I just want to see what the title of Rob's essay is. I want to see if I can find a screen that shows me introduction. Okay. Oh, yeah, here it is. Um, Let me get the share back. Okay. So the book is divided into four parts, and Rob's essay is in part four. It's this one. Economic Theory and Conceptions of Value, Rand and Austrians versus the Mainstream. Okay. So maybe it's more focused on the similarity between Rand and the Austrians than the difference, because here it's contrasting Rand and the Austrians versus the mainstream. But I think there's at least a little bit in there which contrasts Rand and the Austrians. Anyway, that's just the preview. So here's the title on Amazon. Foundations of a Free Society: Reflections on Ayn Rand's Political Philosophy from the Ayn Rand Society Philosophical Studies series. I think one thing that Evolutionary said something that reminded me of that, which is that what the Austrians call subjective value is actually objective value, the way Ayn Rand understands objective value. If I'm recalling this correctly, I did read the essay by Robert Tarr once, several months ago, But if I'm recalling correctly, I think he made that point that what they call subjective is actually objective in the objectivist system. So in the objectivist philosophy, there's a trichotomy. There's not just objective and subjective. There's also objective, subjective, and intrinsic. So it's a different way of conceptualizing the territory. And I guess maybe the Austrians just didn't have this conceptual classification available to them, so they called it subjective. But really, if you had maybe a more worked out version of the options available to you, maybe they would have called it objective if they were aware of Ayn Rand's system. All right. Got some more comments from Greg and Evolutionary. But I'm gonna scroll back here to where I was, but maybe I'll go through these more quickly so I can catch up to the current chats. Uh, and if I see something that looks especially interesting, maybe I'll make a note to discuss it more later, if not now. All right. Some laughing, crying emojis from Godspeed at 12:05 p.m. Pacific. Four of them. Not sure what he's laughing at. Maybe he's laughing at something Evolutionary said because it comes right after some comments from Evolutionary. Then Godspeed says, that reminds me of how Tick history talked about what socialists have in common is keeping an altruistic morality that causes self-hatred coupled with the loss of an Abrahamic faith. Okay. Yeah, so I was talking before about how altruism has been secularized by socialists, and they're still sacrificing themselves just for the state instead of God. Dutzy says, "Oh, I read that one." Um, then Dutzy says, "I'm not sure Mormons have access to the internet while they're on their mission." I don't know. Hadn't thought of that. I wonder if I should always announce the names. Like when I get to a chat, I usually say Godspeed says or Dutzy says. I know other streamers, sometimes they just read the chat without mentioning the name. Maybe it depends on like how big the chat is. Like if you're a streamer with thousands of chatters, maybe the name is less significant because there's just so many people, no one knows who anyone is. But if there's only, a dozen or so chatters, it's a more intimate kind of environment. So maybe there the name is better. Actually, I could do a poll. I'm curious what if you all have a preference on whether I say your name whenever I read your chat out, or should I just read the chat without saying the name? I'm going to do a quick poll here in the chat. I think that might be fun and interesting. So I'm going to ask this, and then you can vote on it. I'm going to ask, do you prefer that I say your name when I read your chat? And you can change your mind later and you can let me know if you do, and this isn't necessarily going to change the way I do it, but I am just curious how to get some feedback now on what you all think about this. Maybe I'll add an option instead of just yes and no. You can also say maybe because maybe it depends on the context. So Okay, I just hit start poll, so you should be able to vote on it now. On the question, do you prefer that I say your name when I read your chats? All right, I see some votes are starting to come in. We have 2 votes so far. We have 13 people watching. That's good to see. So there are a lot of other people who can vote. And I'm not going to know who's voting for what. So these are just anonymous votes. All it does is it tells me how many votes there are for what, but it doesn't tell me who's voting. So it's anonymous. All right, we got 5 votes now. And I don't think it shows you the results as they are being tallied. It'll just show you the end results after I end the poll. I think that's how it works. So I'll leave it up there for a few more minutes at least, and then I'll end the poll, and then you can all see the results. The results should show up in the chat. All right, we got 7 votes so far. Uh, okay, interesting. I'll give it at least I'll give it 1 more minute before I say anything about it. I'm starting a timer here. I don't want to influence too much the way you vote. Um, Meanwhile, let me look at some more of these chats. Um, where did I leave off? Oh yeah. Um, what is the definition of self-sacrifice and altruism? Asks Evolutionary. So self-sacrifice would be putting something above yourself, regarding something other than yourself as a higher value than yourself. And giving up a value for something that you think is has no value or is of lesser value would be a sacrifice. Um, so like I value my laptop more than $5. So for me, it would be a sacrifice to give my laptop to someone for $5. I would be giving up a greater value for a lesser value. It's not a non-value. I mean, $5 is something. It's just not nearly as much as I value my laptop. So it would be a sacrifice to sell my laptop to someone for $5. Now, to give it away for $0, that would be to give up a value for a non-value, not just a lesser value, but a non-value, because $0 is worth nothing to me. So if you give something up for a lesser value or a non-value, that's a sacrifice, and that's you're engaged in self-sacrifice if you do that. Altruism, as Rand understands it, is living for the sake of others. And it's in the word, the Latin alter means other. So it's literally, it means otherism. So if you live for the sake of others rather than for your own sake, which is egoism, I-ism, or selfism, um, that's what altruism is. Living for the sake of others, not just being nice to others or kind or benevolence. You can be all those things and be selfish or self-interested. Like it could be in your interest to be kind to others. I mean, if you're a jerk to others, they're going to be a jerk to you back. At least it's more likely. If you treat others well, they're going to treat you well. At least it's more likely. So it's in your interest, in your self-interest to be kind to others, um, at least so long as they're kind to you. So just being kind doesn't mean you're being altruistic. It's you're not sacrificing yourself. You're not doing something for the benefit of others. It's ultimately it's because it benefits you. Kindness can be a very self-interested trait to have, but I think it also often gets confused. It's kind of like a bait and switch. People kind of water down the essential meaning of altruism, of sacrificing yourself, and they tell you it just means something more benign, like just being kind, in order to get some buy-in to the morality, and then later you find out, oh, it's actually not just being kind. It's like holding Jesus as a moral ideal who sacrificed himself on the cross. That's not just being kind. That's like giving up your life for sinners, um, no less. It's not like I've discussed before, you're giving up your life for someone you might value, like a child or a spouse, but you're saving other people from their sins. That's self-sacrifice. People should pay for their own sins. Okay, um, I'm gonna end this poll now. We got 8 votes, and you can now see the results in the chat. There's a clear winner, a dominant preference. So most people say yes, they do prefer that I say their names when I read the chats. Looks like only one person says no, and one person says maybe. So that's out of 8 votes. 6 yeses, one no, and one maybe. Okay. Now, I guess the next question is why? So, why is it that you prefer whatever you prefer? So, um, I guess one reason you might prefer it, well, before I mention a possible reason, I guess I could let you say what your reasons are. If anyone wants to say, you can say in the chat. I don't have a way to do, I can't do like a poll of what your reason is because I only get like these um, um, pre-established options that YouTube gives me. I can just do yes, no, and then I can add other options like maybe, but your answer is going to be unique as to what your reason is. Um, I mean, other people might share your reason, but I can't like pre-populate answers here in uh, in the YouTube poll. So if anyone wants to say what their reason is for preferring yes, no, or maybe, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'd be interested to hear. MFC just joined the chat. He says, "What are we talking about?" I just joined. Well, in general, my live stream is about promoting Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism. But right now, I did a little poll in the chat asking people if they prefer that I say their names when I read their chats. Like for you, I could have said, someone in the chat says, "What are we talking about?" Or I could have said, MFC says, "What are we talking about?" So there I've read your name. And I was wondering if people prefer that I attach their names to their chats like that. And it looks like most people do prefer that I say their names. So, I mean, you might find it more engaging if I say your names. Um, you're more part of the show, and that's kind of fun, right? It can make it more fun. Okay, MFC just said, "Oh yeah, I liked it when you said my name. It's way better." Yeah, I think it's enjoyable, and it can be a little thrill. You're getting publicized, and your name is out there. You're I guess you're developing a kind of reputation. You're not just an anonymous person, and you got skin in the game, a little more so because you got something at stake. Your reputation is on the line. Um, I don't want to make it seem too high pressure, but there is some kind of association. Of course, your screen name doesn't have to be your actual name. So if you wanted to make the stakes even higher, you could attach your actual name to your chats. Some people go by their actual names, but I think a lot of people, maybe the majority, they just choose some screen name that doesn't identify who they are and what their actual name is. Um, MSC says it's like saying I'm watching you instead of I'm watching someone on YouTube. Yeah, it makes it more personal. So I guess there's a value significance there. Um, I guess I could also do a hybrid approach. Like if there's anyone who prefers that I don't say their name, you could let me know it. Let me know who you are, and then maybe when I come to your chats, I won't say your name. I'll just read the chat. Or I'll say someone says and then read the chat. Maybe I could at least remember to do that for certain people if that is your preference. And if you're the maybe person, you could tell me the conditions under which you would prefer it or not prefer it. And then maybe I could tailor my way of reading it for you. See, I'm giving you some customized service here. I don't know how much you find that here, but um, okay. So I guess I'm going to continue reading people's names then. It also helps people maybe who are just listening and not watching the chat kind of keep track of who's saying what. Like if you're just listening to this later and you're not watching or participating in the chat, but you hear like every time I get to someone's name, you say, "Oh yeah, this guy. I remember he also said this other thing, or she also said this other thing." So an identity of the chatter starts to build in your mind more, or in any of the listeners' minds, in a way that it's harder to do that if you just hear a bunch of someone said this, or just reading the chats with no name associated. Um, it's more anonymized and hard to keep track of what's going on, and you don't get to know people as well. Now you're kind of acquiring personalities of a sort. Um, different people have different ways of chatting, different questions they tend to be, or comments they tend to make. All right, but I'm going to go back and actually engage with some of these chats now. Here's one thing I'm curious about. Several shows ago, many shows, Evolutionary was here, and he said, you said, I guess since you're here, I can address you in the second person instead of he. I could say, you said that I said that um, self-interest means doing whatever you want, something like that, right? You remember that? And I said, that's not my view. I didn't say that. And then you told me to I asked for a timestamp in a video where I allegedly said this because I had a conversation with Evolutionary. We did a video call about a year ago, and it's on his channel. And I asked, where did I say this in this call that we had? And he gave me a timestamp, and I listened to it, and I didn't hear anything to that effect of me saying that self-interest means doing whatever you want or whatever you feel like. So I'm curious, do you now retract that claim that I said being self-interested, or Rand's view, means consists of doing whatever you want? Do you now retract that? Maybe I should wait for an answer on that before I engage further. Because I mean that's a big point. And I think it's a very incorrect interpretation of my view to present it as that. Um, so can we at least be on the same page about that before we address a bunch of other issues? There's a lot of chats here from Evolutionary, but I think maybe instead of trying to go through them all, I'll wait to see if I get a response on that. He says, just going from memory, we were talking about sacrificing your life for one's kids. Then you were talking about self-interest was based on what your values were. Okay. Well, that's okay. Maybe it's not clear that that is saying doing whatever you feel like. Like if you say self-interest is based on what your values were, maybe. I mean, in a sense, like what if you value being a drug addict? You value shooting up heroin. Um, is that self-interested? I would say no. Um, but this might get into a somewhat complicated issue of the principle of two definitions, um, which Leonard Peikoff, one of Ayn Rand's students, her top student for decades, he has a lecture called "The Principle of Two Definitions," and maybe in a generic sense of self-interest, you could say um, pursuing drugs as a drug addict is self-interested, but in the objectivist sense, not just the generic sense, it's not self-interested. It's actually self-destructive. Um, I don't know if I want to go into that issue too much right now, the principle of two definitions, but I mean, Rand clearly says that whim worshipping is not in your self-interest. It's actually self-destructive. Um, so if that's what you mean by doing whatever you feel like or whatever you want, if that just means whim worship, then Rand is clearly against that. Now, I don't know if you could argue that in a generic sense, someone who does that, who whim worships, is being self-interested, and it's only in the objectivist sense that they're not, or if it would be right to say, even in the generic sense of self-interested, it's not self-interested to be a whim worshiper. Okay, but I'm not sure I want to press too much further on that issue right now. I'm going back through, where did I leave off? Okay. Yeah, there's here's one from Greg. He's asking Evolutionary, how does game theory take free will into consideration? Evolutionary is a determinist. So his full name, Evolutionary Capitalist Utilitarianism, or Capitalism Utilitarianism, ECU, but I call him Evolutionary for short. He's a determinist. So, but I don't know if he would say and he also, I guess he likes game theory, which I don't know much about. Greg says game theory studies how people make decisions, including the strategies they use in different circumstances and the possible outcomes of all players' choices. Um, the rational egoist also sees Rand's definition of value as inherently subjective, says Evolutionary. I don't know why you say that. I don't see it as inherently subjective, given my understanding of what subjective means, which we've talked some about in previous shows. He seems like a devout objectivist, says Evolutionary. Are you talking about me? He has a quibble with her definition. Yes, he thinks it can be improved upon. Who does? Oh, are you talking about Michael Leibowitz? Because I see, then you mention you say you're reading View from a Cage right now, which is a book by Michael Leibowitz. He was in prison for 25 years. So I guess he wrote a book called View from a Cage. I need to reread his chapter, The Philosophy of Individual Rights, says Greg. So I guess you mean Michael Leibowitz thinks that has a quibble with Rand's subject definition of self-interest. Okay, Greg and Evolutionary are talking about Lockean rights. I'm just skimming through these to get a vague idea. Um, Greg says, I've heard the term game theory before. I just tried to get a taste of what it was, not master it in a YouTube chat session. Don't we have free will when it comes to voting on a poll? Or are you just that influential, Dan? Well, I didn't influence you, did I? Because I didn't tell you anything about what I thought until after the poll results were in. But I do hope to be influential. One can value destructive things. Yes, says Greg. In a sense, but maybe not in a, if you mean self-destructive, like the heroin example I was giving, maybe in a generic sense of value, you could say heroin is a value, but not in a name brand sense or an objectivist sense. Watch the evolutionary game theory video from Khan Academy at 2:55. It explains how evolution selects for altruism and group selection. Says evolutionary. Yeah, maybe I'll get to that. How long is this segment? I think it was a pretty short video. The whole thing was like 4 or 5 minutes. So the segment is only going to be, and if it starts at 2:55, the relevant segment, I think it can only be like 1 or 2 minutes. Oh, MFC says, I have no idea about Ayn Rand, so I'm a sub and find out. Okay. Let's see if my sub count has changed. Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's up to 938 now. So I guess MFC, I guess MFC is subscriber number 938. Thank you, MFC. I got to plug in my laptop here. It's running out of battery. Uh, That I kind of like that abbreviation, by the way. IMA. This is something I started seeing in pop culture, like in music, for instance. Sometimes they use the contraction IMA. That's such a contraction. So it stands for I am going to. See how much longer that is than IMA? Now, most contractions, maybe they'll take out one letter, like don't, right? Do not. All that does is take out the second O. But IMA, that takes out so many letters. How many letters is that? I am going to. That's 10 letters. I am going to. 10 letters, four words, all contracted to three letters. I'm a sub. I'm a sub and find out. Oh, I guess sub is also a abbreviation for subscribe. I have no idea about Ayn Rand, so I'm a sub and find out. Okay, MFC is going heavy with the contractions there. I guess MFC is also an abbreviation. M period F period C period. I wonder what those letters stand for. If you want to tell us, you can. Actually, I'm gonna go to your channel, see if I can. Here we go. Monster fur chair. Okay, that must be what it is because your YouTube handle, when it's spelled out, I see it says www.youtube.com/@ monster fur chair. So that must be what it is. And then there's I guess your image there in your profile picture is a monster fur chair. I've never heard of a monster fur chair. I guess it's a chair with a bunch of green fuzz on it with an eye looking thing on it. Okay, now I know. I wonder how you came across my channel. Like, if was I recommended by some other video you watched? I wonder if it was something related to Ayn Rand or philosophy, because sometimes that's how people come across me. I'm curious to know like what the links are between like how people come to me. I'm a sub and find out. He says the breakdown of IMA hashtag goes crazy. My pick is a chair with a rug on it. LOL. Okay, there's another abbreviation. LOL. So you went crazy uh, hearing my breakdown of IMA. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope a lot of people enjoyed that. I hear it a lot in music, I think. Maybe rap songs or I'm not sure where I hear it the most. Um, I wonder when and where it originated, like how it originated. But oh, you say I'm a humble, low-brained conspiracy theory guy, and I like science but hate spelling. Okay. Now there you said I am space A. You could have contracted that to I'm a. You didn't use an apostrophe, and your I is lowercase. Okay, then you say that's probably. That's probably why you got recommended, and I like live videos. Okay. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a conspiracy guy. I do like science. I'm not a scientist, or I spend more of my time on talking about philosophy. Um, but anyways, thanks for that info. Luis is here. Hello, Luis. He says good evening. I guess you can give away your time zone somewhat if you say good evening as opposed to good afternoon or good morning. See, me being on the west coasts of US, I would say good afternoon at this point, but um, if you're further east, you're going to say good evening. Um, but good evening to you. A conspiracy without leader, says Greg. Dot dot dot. Maybe he's going to add to that. Oh, Pro Debates is here. I didn't see that. He's a new chatter. He says morality is just how people talk about actions aligning with their wants and desires. Okay, so I don't know if you are a Humean, a follower of David Hume, but what you said there reminded me of David Hume because I think on his view, he, he has that. He says reason is the slave of the passions, right? That's a famous Hume quote. So we're not really rational beings fundamentally. We are the slaves of our passions, of our desires. And morality, says Pro Debates, is just how people talk about actions aligning with their wants and desires. So maybe you think that morality is not a field that in which reason governs. It's just about pursuing your wants and desires, not about following reason. Oh, there's another earlier chat. Oh, a couple more chats from Pro Debates before that. He says, we don't have free will. I have to believe this. Okay, so Pro Debates is a determinist, or at least not a free willist. You never hear that term, free willist, but and she says to Evolutionary, he says, moral anti-realism is the way, the truth, and the real answer. Someone described me as a moral anti-realist once when I said I think morality is agent relative. Like it's to say something is good implies it's good for someone. It's not just good, period. It's good for some agents. It's relative to the agents. Like a hamburger might be good for me if I'm hungry, but it might be bad for me if I'm on a diet and I'm trying to lose weight and there's other options available. Maybe, but it's relative to me and my values. So it's stance dependence. Whereas if you hold it, the good is stance independent. It doesn't matter what agent you are. It's just things are good, period. They're not good relative to some agent. Then you are a moral realist. I think that's the way this term is often understood, moral realism versus anti-realism. Okay. Luis says he follows me on X. Yeah, I've seen you on X, retweeting or reposting some of my posts. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dutzy says to MFC, so you're going for plausible deniability. Oh, is that because he's a guy, conspiracy theory guy, but he also likes science? I'm not sure what the how the plausible deniability filters in. I've not been lured in by the sirens of X yet, says Greg. I use it off and on. There have been phases where I use it a lot, and then sometimes I'll go for long periods where I don't use it much. Right now, I haven't used it much, and I don't know, maybe a couple weeks or so. I mean, I use it to announce my live streams, but I haven't done much more than that on X recently. That's actually a good way you could, if you want to help promote this show, you could share my live stream notifications that I put on X or Facebook. You could share those, retweet them. All right, we're up to 12 likes. Thank you. Um, So let's see, where did I leave off in the chat? Oh, I haven't checked Zoom in a while. Okay. No one's called in. I forget sometimes that I have to look at the Zoom screen, not the YouTube chat, if I want to see whether someone has called in. Um, if you do want to call in, it's helpful if you let me know in YouTube chat, because I'm usually looking at that, so I'll probably see that sooner than if you just call in. All right, so oh yeah, there was some talk about game theory and free will, and this Khan Academy video. Definitions of value. Value equals what one acts to gain or keep. Yeah, Rand describes value that way, at least in Atlas Shrugged. Maybe that's the first place where she uses that formulation. I'm going to the lexicon now. That might be good to do. The Ayn Rand lexicon, where you can see Rand's views on all kinds of topics, organized alphabetically. Here, I'll put this on screen. Okay. So here's the I scrolled down to the V section so we could look up values. Um, so here's the quote that I was just reading. This is from The Virtue of Selfishness, her article, The Objectivist Ethics. She says, value is that which one acts to gain and or keep. And MFC says exactly, what if your values are doing whatever you feel like? Okay. So if you read her art that article, The Objectivist Ethics, she talks about how life is the standard of value. Where did that screen go? Here we go. Life is the standard of value. Um, she starts laying the basis for it here, it looks like. She's plot spoilers here if you haven't read Atlas Shrugged. So I don't know if you want to listen to this, but there's a character in there called John Galt, and he gives a speech, and she quotes from Galt's speech in her article, The Objectivist Ethics. So she's actually quoting herself because she wrote Galt's speech. But quoting Galt, I'll read this paragraph. Galt says, quote, there is only one fundamental alternative in the universe, existence or non-existence, and it pertains to a single class of entities, to living organisms. The existence of inanimate matter is unconditional. The existence of life is not. It depends on a specific course of action. Matter is indestructible. It changes its forms, but it cannot cease to exist. It is only a living organism that faces a constant alternative, the issue of life or death. Life is a process of self-sustaining and self-generated action. If an organism fails in that action, it dies. Its chemical elements remain, but its life goes out of existence. It is only the concept of life that makes the concept of value possible. It is only to a living entity that things can be good or evil. Unquote. So in that paragraph, she's tying the issue of value to the issue of life. It is only the concept of life that makes the concept of value possible. You can't have value apart from life, in other words. So I think if you flesh out this idea, which we started with, value is that which one acts to gain or keep, you see that um, there's a very intimate tie between values and life. So it can't just be anything that you act to gain or keep that is a value, at least upon further analysis, like becoming a heroin addict, maybe that'll kill you. So even though you are, even though you might act to gain and or keep heroin, that doesn't mean it's a value if you understand that the whole phenomenon of values is given rise to by the phenomenon of life. So if something undercuts your life, if it destroys your life, if it leads you to death, then it's an anti-value. It's a destroyer of values. Um, so this formulation here that I have highlighted, I think it's just to get the discussion started without presupposing objectivist content, which she uniquely adds here in the next paragraph. Once you get a fuller understanding of what a value is, then you can refine it a bit. But I think this is just to give a general orienting kind of understanding of values. But then that understanding can become enriched by this analysis here. Um, it's not like a final definition of value. Um, I think I've heard Harry Benswanger, an objectivist philosopher, say something to that effect. Um, it's like a beginning characterization of value. It's not a final definition. The final definition, I guess, would be something that involves life, like that which supports your life, or that which promotes your survival. Now, survival, that's a rich term. Like, what does survival mean? Now, she expands on that and she talks about survival qua man or qua rational being, not just sheer physical survival. So, not all kinds of existence are worth having. Like, if you're a uh, caught in a concentration camp and you're starving to death, right? It might be rational to commit suicide rather than just endure misery. So if you want to survive qua man rather than at qua just is Latin for like as. If you want to survive as a man, not as a subhuman animal, then a concentration camp type of life is not worth living. Um, you can only survive as a man if you are a man, right? You can't survive as a worm or as a plant where you just stick your roots down into the soil and turn your leaves towards the sun. You don't have any roots, you don't have any leaves. So the type of survival that you engage in is going to depend on the type of organism you are. And the life proper to a human being is not the sort of life that you can find in a concentration camp. So that's not survival qua man, qua human being, where survival is like a long-term flourishing sort of existence. You're not really surviving in the camp, you're dying, right? It's like a living death. Um, that came up in the chat last time between Audrey and Evolutionary, the issue of survival. Um, that's one reason I wanted to comment on that some now. Okay. Okay. I just am coming back to the chat. MFC says feigning innocence. Wink. I don't know what that's about. Correction, feigning ignorance. My bad, copy pasted the wrong word. Matthew is here. Hi, Matthew. He says act to gain or keep is the wide definition only, or what you might call the generic sense of value, not the name brand sense. And paralleling, like with drugs, you've got the name brand and then the generic version. Greg says, odd, I thought I read ignorance and now I see it is innocence. Legit same, says MFC. I think your spell check had a Freudian slip of the finger, LOL, says Dudesy. Uh, or maybe it was an intentional double meaning. Thinking emoji, says MFC. He's going into objectivism. I think I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. I was just talking about the meta ethics of objectivism, the basic idea of value, where it comes from. How much for the double entendre in the window, says Greg. Okay. All right. So, oh, I just got a heart. A little heart floated up from the bottom right. You can click on those reactions. I just saw a heart go up. Thanks. Well, I don't know what year the heart was a reaction to, but anyway, it's nice to see those sometimes. All right, what to do next? I could look at that video, I guess, the one that Evolutionary linked to or told me about, or read some more of these chats from Evolutionary because I didn't read them all because there were so many. So I just skipped over a lot of them, but I could go back through some of them. But I think apart from his chats, I've read all the others. I've been going for almost 3 hours now. I might need a break soon again. Greg says act to gain or keep only comes up in OPAR on the searchable CD. Okay. I think the way it's written as act to gain and or keep, I think. Let me go back to oh, it's still on the screen. I didn't stop sharing it. I forgot about that. Yeah, and or with a slash. So maybe if you search for and slash or, you'll see more instances on the CD-ROM if you search. Okay. I might need a snack here soon. So I think what I will do is take a short break again. Well, like maybe 7 or so minutes, get a snack and come back. And then I don't know if I'll watch that video on Khan Academy or just read some more of these chats. MFC says if you made this live video vertical, I bet you would get more watchers. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by make the live video vertical as opposed to horizontal, like a narrow thing in the like a portrait view. I don't know if you can do that, at least the way I'm streaming. Like if I were streaming from my phone, I think I could maybe I have to do it vertical in portrait mode that way, but if I'm using my laptop, I don't know if I can change it. Um, okay. Anyways, I'm going to take a break again for, I don't know, 7 or so minutes, and then we can continue afterwards, or you can continue in the chat, but I'm going to just turn off my mic and camera for a bit, and we'll be back soon. I'm going to I'm going to stop the screen share here. Um, and change my name again from Dan Norton to Dan Norton. Will be back shortly. All right. See you in a bit. Okay, I am back. Sorry, that was a bit longer than I anticipated. I'm just going to change my name here back to Dan Norton. All right. So I watched that video, or at least part of it, the Khan Academy video during that break. I wanted to see if I had anything to say about it before I played it, because I guess there's a little concern there about copyright. Like it's okay to play other people's videos as long as you're reacting to it, but you can't just play other people's videos and use their content like that. There are certain limits on that. So I wanted to see if I had something to say about it, and I did. There's a I did have one or two thoughts, so I think now might be a good time to play that. All right. So that this was the video that's Evolutionary mentioned. S- Let me share that screen. And I queued it up to 238 or so. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll start it a few seconds before the spot that he mentioned. So this is the sure. Okay, there's the video. Evolutionary game theory, individuals in society for the MCAT by Khan Academy. So let's just play from here to, I don't know where I'll stop it, but and let me turn the volume all the way up. All right, here we go.
Or cases where individuals are actively reasoning about the strategies or the behaviors of other individuals. Evolutionary game theory is different because it is applying this theory to situations where there might not be any overall conscious intention on the parts of the players. Another thing that I want to point out about evolutionary game theory is that it can actually help us predict the traits we would expect to see in populations. Evolutionary game theory predicts the appearance of evolutionary stable strategies, or behaviors that tend to persist within a population once they are prevalent. So let's think about this in terms of a complex behavior like altruism. So imagine that we have two groups of monkeys. In one group, the monkeys act selfishly. When one sees a predator approaching, he takes the time to hide and does not warn the others, which makes it more likely that he'll escape and that the predator will eat one of the other monkeys instead.
Okay, let me just make sure the sound is coming through.
In one group, the monkeys act selfishly.
Yeah, okay. So she says the the monkey will act selfishly if it hides and doesn't warn the others. What was that? Let me just play that last bit again.
So imagine that we have two groups of monkeys. In one group, the monkeys act selfishly. When one sees a predator approaching, he takes the time to hide and does not warn the others.
Okay. He takes the time to hide and doesn't warn the others. Now, is that really selfish? Now, I don't know that you can even use this term selfish literally when it comes to non-human animals, because I think morality is the realm of choice. Now, this is also an area where I disagree with evolutionary. He's a determinist. I believe in free will. And if everything is determined, then um, I don't think it's right to use moral terms. And I think selfish or altruism, selfishness and altruism, I think those are moral terms. They're types of moralities. But if there's no choice involved, then there's no moral issue. Um, oh, hold on a second. I got to put something back in the fridge. I left something out. Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Let me share the screen again. Here we go. Okay, so strictly speaking, I don't think the term selfish or altruistic applies to beings that don't have free will. They're not making choices. If you're just acting instinctively, you're pushed and pulled around by deterministic forces. Um, I guess you could say that something is acting in a way that benefits itself or that does not benefit itself, but I wouldn't call that selfish or unselfish since they're not making choices. Um, but maybe I can set that aside for now, at least, and we can use the term in a extended kind of sense where we apply these moral terms like selfishness and altruism to beings that are not moral beings. Um, so is it really selfish for the one to run behind the tree and not warn the others? Well, I don't think it's obvious that it is. Like, what is life worth living if you don't have, or is it even possible to live if you don't have your fellow monkeys? If you're a herd animal, you're not the sort of animal that survives. Like I mentioned before, there are different kinds of organisms. Like you got worms, you have birds, fish, dogs, and they all have different ways of surviving. And maybe if you're a social kind of animal, you can only survive if you have others like you to help you survive. So if the monkey is like that, then you might think it's unselfish for it to just run around and hide behind a tree because it's not going to last very long without its fellow monkeys. Or even if it could survive on its own, it might not be worth living without its fellow monkeys. Maybe life would just be sad and lonely for the monkey. Maybe it's a life not worth living, like we've talked about with risking your life to save your children. Maybe you would just be miserable without your children. So it's actually not in your self-interest to stay in existence if you can only do so without your children. Likewise, maybe it's not self-interested for the monkey to stay in existence if it doesn't have its fellow monkeys to be its friends or its sexual partners. It would just be a miserable, unhappy kind of existence. So I don't think it's obvious that it's it's right, as this narrator of this video says, that the selfish thing for this monkey to do is just to run behind the tree and not warn its fellow monkeys. Okay. All right. I'm going to place some more of this.
which makes it more likely that he'll escape and that the predator will eat one of the other monkeys instead.
Yeah. So maybe he'll escape for the moment. He can survive a little bit longer, but is it a life worth living? Like if you extend out, fast forward a month, a year, it's not necessarily good to prolong your existence if it's a miserable kind of existence.
And now, on the surface, it seems that this is a pretty good strategy to ensure survival. After all, you get out of it alive.
Okay, but what's the quality of your life? Are you miserable or are you happy? So you can't just it's a mistake to just equate sheer physical existence with um, survival. If survival is a robust sort of term, like before I use these phrases, survival qua man, or survival qua rational being. Are you living the life proper or best for the type of organism you are? Are you living a life that's good for a monkey if you don't have any fellow monkeys to share your life with? Um, Maybe not. So you're surviving in a bare physical sense, but not in the sense that is proper to monkeys. perhaps.
However, imagine what would happen if the entire group behaved this way. It would mean that our monkey would be more likely to die if another monkey also didn't sound the alarm.
If the entire group behaved this way, so if all of them ran behind trees and didn't warn any of the others of this predator, then they would all perish. Is that the idea? Let me go back.
Now, on the surface, it seems that this is a pretty good strategy to ensure survival. After all, you get out of it alive. However, imagine what would happen if the entire group behaved this way. It would mean that our monkey would be more likely to die if another monkey also didn't sound the alarm.
So one would be more likely to die if the others didn't sound the alarm. I'm not sure. Is that right? Like, what if they all ran behind trees? Now the predator has to choose which tree to look behind. If he doesn't choose yours, maybe he'll go after someone else. So, like, um, are you more likely to die or less likely to die? It's, I mean, I guess if you can guarantee that if you all stick together, then no one's going to die. Whereas if you all run behind trees without alerting anyone else, then the chances, at least, maybe if you got 20 monkeys in your monkey tribe or whatever I don't know what a group of monkeys is called, if there's a special name for it, but now you have like a 1 out of 20 chance of dying rather than a 0 out of 20 chance dying if you all stick together. I'm not sure if that's what the narrator has in mind by saying what did she say? You're more likely to survive if you all stay in the group.
Get out of it alive. It seems that this is a pretty good strategy to ensure survival. After all, you get out of it alive. However, imagine what would happen if the entire group behaved this way. It would mean that our monkey would be more likely to die if another monkey also didn't sound the alarm. And, over time, this could decimate that monkey population and reduce the fitness of the overall group. But what if they adopted another strategy, one that involved giving an alarm call whenever a predator was spotted? The monkey that would make this call is doing this at his or her own expense because it could draw the predator to them.
Okay, it's doing it at its own expense, but is it really at its own expense, given that maybe it's necessary to keep the group alive in order to ensure that it's going to have the kind of survival that makes its own life worth living? So maybe this is analogous to the case of swimming out to save a drowning child of yours. Like, you do take a risk to your own life by swimming out there. Maybe you'll drown, but if you don't do it, you're gonna end up with you're gonna end up losing your child, and then that's not going to be a life worth living. So likewise, this monkey is taking a risk, drawing attention to himself by making this noise to alert his fellow monkeys. But that's a self-interested act, because without those monkeys, his life is not worth living, or maybe it's not even possible for him to live, given the way monkeys survive. Maybe they need they need each other to survive. So I wouldn't call this an altruistic action, which is what I think the narrator is about to do. Anything that involves helping others gets classified as altruism. But I think that's a package deal. I think that's what Rand would call a package deal, where you're combining um, essentially different sorts of things under one term. Like, this is not what Jesus does, right? Jesus is not, when he sacrifices himself on the cross, or when he gets sacrificed, like, he's not, if you see that as like a um, paradigmatic example of altruism, of living for the others, for the sins of others, right? Not even for good people necessarily, but allowing himself to be destroyed for others. That's not what this monkey is doing. He's enabling himself or herself to live a better life going forward by having his fellow monkeys with him. He's not just totally giving himself up for bad monkeys, right? He's not destroying himself for sinners. So if you call both the sort of thing that Jesus did altruistic, and just anytime you help others, like this monkey is doing, altruistic, even if that by helping others that makes your own life improve, then you're putting together under one term, you're package dealing these essentially different kind of actions, which is um, it's a mistake to do that. But I think she's going to call him altruistic shortly. Let's see.
The monkey that would make this call is doing this at his or her own expense because it could draw the predator to them. So initially, you might think that this strategy would fail. But what happens when a monkey makes a call? It means that all of the other monkeys within that group survive. And of course, it's possible that the monkey who makes the call survives as well. And so this actually winds up being a really successful strategy. And I want you to really think about this because it means that altruism actually increases the success of the overall group. So even though it might put one individual at risk, it increases the fitness of the community around it, making our monkey, or maybe the kin of our original monkey, more likely to survive and reproduce.
Okay, so she's saying it's self-interested ultimately for this monkey to engage in these so-called altruistic actions. But if the monkey does this, knowing, now this is, I think, a reason why you can't really call it altruism, use a moral term, because I guess altruism, when used as a moral term, is you're doing something consciously, knowing what its effects are going to be on you. Like if you explicitly think this is bad for me, this is an act of self of sacrifice for the sake of others, then it would be altruistic. But if you have no idea, like if monkeys can't even think in these terms, it's a little stretch to call it altruism, which is why I said at the beginning that I don't think these terms really apply. But if you just set that aside and kind of imagine that the monkey has a human sort of mind and it knows that by engaging in this risky behavior on its own, it could ultimately benefit itself. And that's its reason for engaging in this risky behavior, because ultimately it somehow comes back to benefit itself. Then that's not altruistic, or it's not putting others ahead of itself. It's just taking a long run view of what is in its self-interest. So it's actually self-interested. It's not an altruistic action. Um, Unless you just have this meaning, if you take altruism to just mean helping others, then which I don't think is the right way to understand it. Um, but I don't think that's if you have egoism versus altruism, that dichotomy, um, it doesn't you can't really make sense of that dichotomy if you take surely helping others to be altruistic. I think it has to be something more significant than just helping others. It has to be sacrificing yourself, putting their interests ahead of your own, um, to the detriment of your own interest, and doing that consciously. And I don't think that's what's going on here. So I think the way a lot of this gets analyzed is is faulty for the sorts of reasons I've been giving. But there's just a few more seconds here. Let me just play it to the end.
Making our monkey, or maybe the kin of our original monkey, more likely to survive and reproduce. And that's why evolutionary game theory would predict the appearance of altruism within a group.
Yeah, so I just would not call that altruism.
And that's why evolutionary game theory would predict the appearance of altruism within a group.
All right. Um, or you could say it's not altruism that we're seeing. It's long range self-interested action. All right, let me come back. I'm not going to stop the screen share quite yet. Let me first come back to the chat. Um, all right. Oh, it doesn't look like there's any new chats. Wow, it's been a while since there's new chats. But we still got some people here. I wonder if Evolutionary is here because he's the one who wanted me to watch that video. Maybe I should have asked him if he was here before I watched it. I'm guessing that if you were here, he probably would have had something to say. But um, that's all right. He can watch this later on non-live replay. How did my okay. I thought my pinned chat was unpinned for a second there. Okay, we just got a new chat from Greg. He says, "Do you teach in a university environment, Dan?" No, I don't. I used to when I was in graduate school. Oh, I'll stop this screen share now. Yeah, I did teach a couple courses when I was in grad school, and I was a TA, teaching assistant, many times. Um, but right now, I'm not. I'm not in a university or college teaching. Decided I would rather have time for other things, like working on my YouTube channel and trying to grow that. I think I can reach more people that way. It's not just uh, a few dozen students, but you could potentially reach hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people through YouTube. Of course, you can do both. I mean, and some professors probably do also have a YouTube channel, but it just wasn't. I would rather have more time for other things than what goes into being a university professor. Grading is one thing I really did not like when I was a grad student. I had to grade papers from undergraduates, and that was not pleasant. Occasionally, rarely, there would be a really well-written paper that was a pleasure to read, but most of the time it was pretty painful, and it takes a lot of time too. So that's one thing I'm glad I don't have to do. Publishing is another thing that professors are often expected to do, unless you're just at a purely teaching school. But a lot of schools require professors to not just teach, but also publish and like write academic philosophy articles. And I don't have an interest in doing that right now, at least. I mean, I love talking about philosophy. That's what I do here on this show, but um, I don't want to spend a lot of my time writing academic philosophy articles. It's a different style of writing also than just like writing for a more general audience. Um, but there's also, I like to spend a lot of time learning about things like history in particular, and I just wouldn't have the time to do that if I were living the life of a professor and having to teach like 3 or 4 classes per term and prepare for all those classes, do all that grading. And then sometimes there's also administrative work that goes along with being a professor, just in running a department. So I think it is very time consuming, and I just would rather use my time differently. At least right now, that's how I feel. I guess I could always change later, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now. Critiquing martial arts competitions was not something I enjoyed in my martial arts training, says Greg. Okay, I guess that's like the grading version for martial arts. You critique martial arts competitions. All right. So I guess you're a martial artist, or were. He says yes. I never did that. Um, Oh, he says he was a martial artist. Okay. Okay. Well, I think I might end the stream now. It looks like the chat is slowing down some. Um, oh, for 14 years he was a martial artist. Okay. Yeah, unless anything pops up here that's like someone is burning to discuss, I think I might end it. I guess if Evolutionary were here, he'd probably have a lot to say about that video. But maybe we'll talk about that next time. He can watch what I said about it, and then if he wants to discuss that, maybe we can do that next time, which will probably be, I would guess, maybe in 4 days. I think I'm not going to have to do jury duty, fortunately. I felt relief because I'll call again. There's this number I have to call to confirm whether I'm going to have to show up for the jury selection. And I called it yesterday and it sounded like no, but I think to get the official word, I'm supposed to call it tomorrow. So that might throw a wrench in my plans if I do have to do something related to that. But uh, if I don't have to do that, then I think I'll probably stream in another 4 days. So what would that be? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So maybe on Wednesday I'll stream again. Okay. All right. Just taking a last look at my notes here. I guess I can talk about some of this stuff next time if there aren't new chats to discuss. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming by today. I do appreciate you being here, and thank you for all your chats. Thank you for the watch time. That will help me hit my goal of 3,000 hours of watch time for being able to take super chats. Thanks for all the likes on the show, and thanks for any new subscribers. Okay, I'm going to end it. So have a good rest of your day, and hope to see you again in the future. All right, bye everyone.